Hello everyone, welcome back to Johnnykin and the Goblins. We're on Johnnykin and the Goblin meeting. So he's just been let in through the door. He found himself in the old church, but it seemed to be many times larger than usual. And it was swarming with thousands of goblins who were all over the building. Some were on the ground, some swinging from webs like spiders, others buzzing, fluttering, flying up in the air like bees and birds and butterflies. Boughs had grown out of the great pillars, and on these were perched, some goblins like a roosting fowl, clucking and talking. Others had built nests and put up brackets in all kinds of places. It was warm and comfortable. There was a pleasant, delicate smell, like pine boughs, roses, hot plum cake, pastils, hyacinths, coffee, sherry wine, even lobster salad, and eau de cologne, which Johnnykin thought was very nice, but it smelt like a party. As he entered with the goblin, they were met by a small person with a pitiful, pointed face, a very long tail, who caught the goblin by the arm and said, "Do pray do something for me. I'm so very poor. I should like to have what will be left from supper. Don't you think they'd make a collection for me?" "Is that the sexton?" asked Johnnykin, after the goblin had promised the poor person to do something for him. "Sexton," replied his friend. "No, it's the church mouse. Did you ever hear of a man being as poor as a church mouse? He is awfully poor, but that's because he's a poor creature in every way. I don't believe if you gave him cheese for a conundrum, he'd ever find his way into it." "But a cheese couldn't be a conundrum, said Johnnykin. "What's the moon made of?" asked the goblin sharply. "I have heard," said Johnnykin, "that a stupid person couldn't tell the moon from a green cheese." "Can you guess why they say so?" asked the goblin. "No," replied Johnnykin. "Then that's a conundrum, because you can't guess it." "That's all nonsense, replied Johnnykin, adding in his vexation, "He who calls every lie a myth and every question a conundrum might just as well call all men Smith and beat all day long on one drum." But before he could finish this reply, the goblin vanished with a laugh, and he felt somebody twitch his elbow. It was a boy, a very little boy, all in blue, with blue shoes and a cap. A little hunter's horn hung around his neck, and a little sheep by him. Who could this be? "Well, my little man," asked Johnnykin, "who are you?" "If you please, I'm Little Boy Blue," was the reply, "and the two young ladies sent me to say they'd like to speak to you." Johnnykin looked up and saw Marjolaine beckoning to him from a corbel, a sort of old stone bucket at the top of the pillar. When she was looking his way, and then he realised she was nesting with Chesme. They had bouquets and fans. They seemed very stylish indeed, notwithstanding all his jumping and flying that night. Johnnykin could not think how to get up to them, till Marjolaine threw out a pink ribbon with a sugar plum tied to the end. It unrolled downwards in the most wonderful manner until Johnnykin caught the sugar plum, when, in an instant, it was drawn up through the air, and he found himself seated very comfortably with them. "There's a pretty fish to catch now," said Chesme, laughing, as they landed him. "How did you like your storybook? And what a nice ride we had she added, without even stopping. And oh, do look, there goes that hateful, mean-spirited church mouse. The wretch had the impertinence just now to fall on his knees before me and beg me not to eat him. I told him I had done forever with all such horrid, the vulgar creatures, mice, and cats, and I declare, here comes Charlie loves good cake and ale. How do you know Charlie? This was a very merry-looking youth, whom Johnnykin at once remembered having seen among the wild riders in the wilderness. How do you know my lady? He said to Marjolaine, and bowed to her, and to all. A jolly good gallop you had, he added to Johnnykin, smiling. A good horse, eh? That of yours? The cock-horse from Banbury Cross. None better. I am sure you seemed to be much better mounted, replied Johnnykin. You rode on one horse and had another led all the time. Charlie Cake and Ale looked funnily at him and said softly, Mum's the word. All a taking. Goblin work, you know. The horse I rode was only Shank's mare. She looks pretty well, but then you're always on your feet when you're riding, so that you might just as well be walking, you know. But then there was your other horse, said Johnnykin. Ah, well, yes, but that was Hobson's choice. You see, I had the choice of Shank's mare or none. So I took Shank's mare, and that gave me Hobson's choice also, but neither of them is good for much, unless you can do just as well without. If you can, they answer very well. I wonder, thought Johnnykin to himself, if there's anything real among these people. Marjolaine caught his eye, and said with a quiet smile, I'm real, that is, you will find me so by and by. The play isn't over, and it will last a long time yet. By and by you will find what the reality is among us. There's always a new life for anybody who wills it. Goodbye, said Charlie. I must be off. I've got an appointment with the Jumping Joan and Handy Spandy. Jack-a-dandy, added Chesme. Yes, there they are. Glad to have met you, he said to Johnnykin. We'll all meet at supper. Bonsoir, my lady. And off Master Charlie went, singing a very joyful song indeed. Let's drink and be merry and ride and rejoice. Thou were 1 shilling sherry and Hobson his choice. I'm a goblin, I know, and it's proper and fit to be always a goblin, a tippling a bit. They say he used to be Charles II, said Marjolaine, because he is so very merry. I'm sure, said Chesme, that in anything like eating, drinking, and flirting, he must have been Charles I and II to nobody. I asked him once if he had ever been Charles II, and he had the impudence to reply that he had never been concerned in a duel in his life. But he's jolly company, for he has so many tricks, yet never harms or teases anybody. I don't believe he ever went or came twice in the same way. Just look now and see him. Saying this, she lightly snapped her fingers. Johnnykin had observed. The other goblins, well, they were doing this when they wanted to call one to the other. Charlie was far across the church in a nest, like theirs, with some very, well, frolicsome friends, and his back was towards them. But the instant they snapped the fingers, he turned round and made a sign to Chesme that he did understand, and was coming. He held between his fingers an almond sugar plum, which began to swell into a large egg, and making a sign to Chesme to catch, he threw it to her, and it left his fingers. He disappeared, but as Chesme caught the egg, it broke, and out of it jumped Master Charlie. Very small indeed, but he at once shot up to his usual size. "Here we are again," he cried. "As large as life, and twice as unnatural," replied Chesme. "Why, Charlie, what is that you have hanging to your watch chain?" asked Marjolaine. It was a very pretty little gold cannon. "I made that myself this afternoon," replied Charlie with pride. "And 150 more, all exactly like it." "Indeed," said Johnnykin. "And how?" "Playing at billiards," answered Charlie. Other players let the cannons lie on the table. I picked mine up as fast as I made them, and put them aside. We were playing for guineas, and so of course the cannons were gold. "You must have very peculiar balls for such a game," remarked Johnnykin. "So we have. In our Goblin game, we have them very small. I always play with peas." "And what do you strike the peas with?" asked Johnnykin. "With the cues, of course. Peas and cues. Peas and cues always go together. But then you must mind them, you know." "I've seen very little fairy children play with peas," said Chesme. "There's an old song about it. In fact, listen, I'll tell you. Fairies play at marbles when the moon is bright. You may see them rolling all the summer nights, while around the hill tinkle goes the rill. When the wood is quiet, they blow the fairy horn, and with peas or marbles they play among the corn. While round the hill twinkle goes the rill. When you find a pea pod on the stem all bare, with the little marbles gone, the fairies have been there. While round the hill twinkle goes the rill." "Peas," said Charlie, "make very nice pudding for pork. By the way, what was a nice run we had after the pig? But I had a bunt this morning, which put me to any trump, and never a pack ready. I was in the kitchen, when all at once Rabbit jumped out of a hole in the cheese. Fortunately, there was a horse standing before the fire, so I mounted at once." "A horse in the kitchen," said Johnnykin, "and before the fire? Where else would it be?" replied Charlie. "It was a clothes horse, so after the rabbit I flew with the dogs, right at its heels I did." "Were your dogs there also?" asked Johnnykin. "Certainly, the fire dogs. One must do what one can at a pinch, and so after a nice gallop I got my game." "Wasn't a cheese a queer place for a rabbit to come out of?" asked Johnnykin. "Not at all," replied Charlie. "It was a Welsh rabbit. They always come out of cheeses." "I should as soon think," replied Johnnykin, "of saying that butterflies came out of butter." Chesme laughed. "Words are things," she said. "In Goblin land we wouldn't, but you wouldn't, like to know." She nodded and added, "How to tell fortunes by butterflies. I have got in my pocket a little old book of fortune telling by a gipsy fairy. This is what it says: if a butterfly sit on your hand, you'll be the luckiest in all the land. If a butterfly, well, we'll continue next time, shall we, with the butterflies? And I'll tell you all about them again. But for now, we must say goodbye, and I'll see you all next time. Many blessings.